Here we are, Real Recovery Talk. I am your host, Tom Conrad. In today's episode, we've got Benjamin B.
What's up, everybody?
How you doing, bud?
Excited today. Step 5, come alive.
Step 5 coming alive. Step 5 coming alive.
Got your
Step
danger
5.
glasses on?
What?
You got your danger glasses on?
Yeah.
Your pit
See
vipers?
these bad boys? If you can't see these, you should be on YouTube watching this, and you could see the sunglasses I got. You know what I don't like about these?
They look like, what's a Macho Savage guy? What's his name?
Macho Man Randy Savage?
There it is, yeah.
No, that's not.
Oh, okay.
I mean, could be, but I don't like these because they're the same colors as Miami Dolphins.
Oh, what's wrong with that, Tom?
Everything.
You're in South Florida.
I need black and gold.
Ugh, gross.
All right. Hey, listen, thank you for tuning in on whatever podcast app you choose, and thank you for watching on YouTube. And in the end, if you want to reach out to either myself or Ben, you could always reach us. Tom at realrecoverytalk.com and Ben at realrecoverytalk.com. And, send us an email, and we'll get back to you and maybe have a conversation about your specific situation and see if we can help in any way, shape, or form. Right, Ben?
Correct.
All right, so today we're continuing our series on the 12 stepperoonies, and we're on step 5, Ben.
Yes, sir.
Last on step 4, you said that you were super excited about doing step 5, and I'm kind of curious as to know why. Why?
You're curious, and the reason I'm excited is because of the experience that I had with it.
Okay.
2020 hindsight, I don't think I realized how heavy that experience was until further down the road. But looking back, I'm like, what a pivotal moment in my recovery.
To have the opportunity to do step 5.
Yeah. And what came of it and what I ended up seeing. I don't want to give it away right now, but we'll jump into it. We say this all just in case there's some old timers listening, some AA old timers.
Mm-hmm.
I just like to throw it out there tradition wise. Tom and I do not represent Alcoholics Anonymous or any 12-step fellowship as a whole. We're just two guys here sharing our experience, so you can take it or leave it. We do not speak on behalf of the fellowship, so to speak.
Very well put.
All right.
All right, so let's just get right into it. Step 5 is we admitted to ourselves and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Are you proud that I remembered that?
I am. Yeah, Tom, I am.
Yep, that's step 5.
So, admitted to God. Admitted.
Oh, maybe I missed the God part.
No, you said it. I'm pretty sure you did.
No, I didn't.
Admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. That's what you said.
I didn't say the God part.
Oh, you didn't?
No, that's the biggest part.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
The word admitted.
Yep.
A very important word. Tom, if I hand you a little ticket that says admit 1, what are you going to do with your ticket?
Put it in my pocket and wait to get up to the gate.
You're going to go into the party, right?
Oh, yeah.
All right. So admitting is different than accepting. So when we admit something, it means we're fully letting it in, to let in, basically. That's the way that it was explained to me. Accepting, when we accept something, if you look at the serenity prayer, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Accepting is referring to, most of the time, things that I can't change. When I admit something, that means that I can do work to play a part in the change that occurs. Does that make sense?
That makes total sense.
So the word admitting and accepting are very, very important to differentiate the two. So, with that being said, we admitted to God, to ourselves, and another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Why is admitting something to God the easy part?
I would say admitting something to God, there isn't a human element to it.
And in my experience, and this is just my take on it, if I've done something, God, higher power, the spirit of the universe already knows.
Yeah.
I don't really have to admit something to God. I have to admit to myself that God already knew, right? To ourselves, why is it easy to admit something to ourselves? I say that with an asterisk because sometimes we can't see the truth, but why is it easier to admit something to ourselves?
Well, because we did it.
Because we did it. Unless I took too much Xanax or drank too much vodka and blacked out, I'm usually pretty aware of what I've done as far as my negative behavior, so to speak. Now, admitting to another human being, why is that so difficult?
Well, because we don't want to be judged, I would say primarily. Most people, when they enter into this step, have a lot of guilt and shame about the things that they have done. So you're asking me to share oftentimes my deepest, darkest, at least to me, deepest and darkest secrets to somebody that can cast judgment upon me.
Spot on.
Yeah.
God already knows. I already know. The reason we bring another human being into it is because that's where we have to check our pride and ego. Me admitting to somebody else where I'm wrong, there's something scary about that. That's the only one of the three where I actually have to go to someone and verbalize it, so to speak.
Let me ask you this. Did you read the second part of that? The except when to do so will injure them or others?
Oh, that's step 9.
Oh.
Yeah.
The making amends part.
Yeah, making amends. Yeah.
Yeah.
So keep coming back, Tom. It's
Okay.
it's Monday morning. We'll give Tom a break.
Whew.
Hey, last week, what did I do last week? I thought
I'm not sure.
not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it was in how it works, when everybody who goes to meetings knows it's a 9-step promises. So Monday morning. All right, so where were we? Admitting to God, to ourselves, and to another human being. Going to another human being's tough because of pride and ego. Why would we want to do that, though? So let me say this. Let me go back to the prepare and execute of the first few steps. Step 4, you write your inventory, which we went over last time. You know, who did it, what they did, how it made me feel. Then you go into why would I show that person patience, love, and tolerance. And then you also look at your part. How was I selfish, self-centered, self-seeking, afraid? And we go over fears. We go over the sex inventory. So we collect all this information in the 4-step. And now we're going to share it with somebody else. And I want to kind of jump to it just so I don't forget to mention it later. Another part of the 5th step goes on to say, but they had not learned enough of humility, fearlessness, and honesty in the sense we find it necessary until they told someone else all their life story. And all their life story is in italics, squiggly spaghetti letters once again, so it's important. That's the opportunity where Tom was talking about to tell somebody your deepest, darkest secrets. So we do this inventory, and then we also prepare ourselves in the 5th step. Well, actually, we execute in the 5th step, telling somebody all our deepest, darkest secrets. So why would we do that? So I write my 4-step. I got all the evidence, if you will. Now I have to share it with somebody. That somebody is my sponsor, and I just want to throw it out there. I've had several sponsors at this point. I've done a couple fourth and 5th steps. I'm gonna not name the sponsor the one that was most had the biggest effect on me, I should say. So I'm doing this 5th step. I'm taking this to my sponsor. Wrote everything I'm supposed to write, and I sit down with them and I read it to them. I'm admitting all my defects to another human being. We get towards the end of my 5th step, reading my 4-step to them, and including the part that says opportunity to tell someone else all your life story, those deep, dark secrets, those skeletons in the closet, the things that I'm taking to the grave. And my sponsor looks at me and goes, Ben, was that everything? You were thorough? You were honest, disclosed everything that there is to disclose. This is your opportunity. Yes, sir, it is. We are done. Let's move on to step 6. My sponsor, thank God, and this is a man armed with the facts about himself because he had been through this process. He looks me in the eye. He didn't even have to say anything. He knew that there was stuff that I kept to myself that I knew should have been shared. Or maybe I was even questioning, like, what's the use in sharing that? Either way, I wasn't sharing it. And he looks at me, and without saying, Ben, you didn't share everything, rather than saying that, he looks at me, because he speaks my language. He could see right through me. He's an alcoholic crackhead that could see straight through my BS, and he goes, I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to disclose the stuff to you that was in my fourth and fifth step that I didn't want to tell my sponsor. This guy starts rattling off his deepest, darkest secrets that he was taking to the grave that he shared with his sponsor. Lo and behold, this man basically disclosed, I would say about 90% of it was stuff that was exactly what I didn't want to share with him, and I was taking to my grave. In that moment, and this is why I was talking about in the beginning of the podcast, why I was so excited to talk about this, is because the experience that I ended up having. What I ended up seeing is that this man, I was full of fear. I wasn't going to share this stuff. This man comes out and shares the stuff that I didn't want to share. He clearly was a man who had more courage than I did. And I was like, that kind of hurt my pride and ego for a split second. But what that turned into was this man inspired me to turn right back around. Well, he shared that stuff with me. I'm going to go ahead and share with him. And you know, the funny thing, Tom, is like, while I can look at it and say, yeah, it felt good to get that stuff out with somebody and I didn't have to hide from myself or from the world anymore. Somebody else knew. I felt like I slowly felt like I didn't have to hide who Ben truly was and what was in my past. Now, I didn't just run out to the world and start telling everybody, hey, man, I shared this with my sponsor and that with my sponsor. I was very protective over that. But I'm going to kind of jump ahead to step 12. Since then, I've ended up doing for my sponsees what my sponsor did for me. And watched other men who were taking stuff to their grave share things with me that they had never shared with another human being. See, the whole time, what I realize now is that I thought doing these steps was all about me. The big book tells us the root of our problem is not our alcohol, it's not our drugs, it's not our fentanyl, it's not our heroin, it's not our crack, it's not our meth. It's the fact that we are selfish and self-centered. We want to make ourselves feel better, regardless of the harm that it does to the rest of the world. Now, it's not about me, I find out. It's about me practicing with my sponsor so that I have the courage and willingness to share it with another man who may carry that message. My sponsor showed me through action what was possible, a level of courage that I didn't know existed. Because most men, dude, I did things that were embarrassing. I did things that I was not proud of. I hurt people. I harmed people. I hurt myself. I harmed myself. Mostly, I think that the stuff that I wanted to take to my grave was the stuff that was embarrassing. It hurt my pride and ego the most. We do dumb things when we're drunk, when we're high, when we need to get high and we don't have resources to get high. You throw a little meth in there. Anybody who does meth knows weird things happen on meth, dude. So,
oh yeah.
With that being said, it's the experience that I ended up having through the fifth step that my sponsor led by example. It wasn't about me. It was about preparing me to have the courage to continue to share. And now at this point in my recovery, I'm pretty much an open book. You know, I'll share stuff in front of a group of 15 people. I'll share with my sponsees. I'll share one-on-one with somebody that's struggling. It prepared me for the rest of the journey.
So give us an example of, and whatever you want to share on this, but give us an example of something that you were struggling with sharing in the moment that once you saw he was willing to share his stuff with you, it opened the door for you to share with him. Do you have anything you'd be willing to share?
So this is case in point, Tom. Dang, man, you put me on the spot. Hold on a second. Really put me on the spot. But here's the thing. And don't get me wrong, it still makes me super uncomfortable to talk about this stuff. And right now, if I put it on a podcast, it's out there. But
You don't have to.
no, I know I don't.
Oh, okay.
But I'm going to practice what I preach, right?
All Yeah.
And here's the point. I was afraid to tell one person. Now today, maybe I have the willingness to talk about it on a podcast. I'll just throw it out there like that. To anybody who's listened, what podcast was I talking about being molested as a kid? I was on the 4-step, right?
Could be, yeah.
Yeah. So I looked at it for myself like, hey man, as a 10-year-old, I lost my virginity to a mid 40-year-old man, right? Like that's how I imagine myself. I'll just throw it out there like this. I go into more detail with my sponsees and anybody that needs to hear it. But like when I was dope sick and it came down to getting stuff, I would do anything to get that, including prostituting myself.
Mm-hmm.
I crossed my own lines, things along those lines. I'll kind of leave it at that. You can
No, I
you
mean,
can figure it out.
yeah, I mean that's kind of what I was alluding to, or just wanting a little bit, because I guarantee you that there's people out there that are listening that are thinking to themselves, because you really don't get much lower than that. I mean, let's call it what it is.
Yeah,
I mean,
no.
you're selling your body, you're selling your soul. I mean, it's one of the most degrading things you can do to yourself, and no shame or anything for that, but that's the depths that people go to support their addictions. And I guarantee that there's people out there listening that have done that and are under the impression that that's something they're going to take to their grave. And it's you're proving fact that this isn't something that you identify with. It's something that you did. You obviously work through it and are willing to utilize that experience as a positive now, even though in the moment, like obviously, we never want anybody to have to go through that. But, because it goes back to what we were saying in one of the previous episodes, we won't regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it.
It doesn't define who I am today.
Right.
It really doesn't. There's trauma that led up to it. There's all of this stuff didn't happen at once. It's not who I am. It's something I did. It's not who I am.
Well, and even then, like, it's an experience that you went through that had you not gone through that experience, you wouldn't be afforded the opportunity to work through that experience and see the benefits that come from it. And that's why a friend of ours, Robbie Eddy, wrote that book, Unfair Advantage. Mm-hmm. A lot of times we go through this stuff and we look at it as such a, well, I'll say this, normal people look at the things that we've gone through, the situations we've put ourselves in, and they're like, oh my gosh, how could that person ever go through that? That poor soul, or bless their heart. I hate that one. Bless your heart.
Yeah.
But it's almost like they'll look like, almost like have a pity party for us. Mm-hmm. But I'm a firm believer, and I'll say this through and through. Everything that I did, all the cars that I've crashed, all the relationships that I destroyed, all the women that I've womanized or whatever, and I've had opportunities to make amends to all those people, and I have an opportunity now to look at all those things that I've did or done in my past, and I wouldn't be where I'm at today had I not gone through that stuff. And all the situations that I put myself in, very bad situations that, normal people just don't do. But it made me the person that I am today, and I'm grateful for that, and I think that's part of this 5th step, is the first real kind of opportunity that we get to start sharing this stuff with another person and seeing the benefits that come from that. And it's a cool thing.
Yeah, man, it sucks walking through life. You talked about the benefits. It sucks walking through life being ashamed. Like, a big part of it for me, and I've talked about this maybe briefly on when we've talked about trauma in the past, but like after experiencing what I experienced at 10 years old, being molested, like that was the summer before 6th grade. I walked into middle school hating myself. And like I was constantly hiding who I was inside, if that makes sense, and always felt less than. You always had something better than me. You were always funnier than me. You were always a better athlete than I was. I did nothing but compare myself to other people and didn't see anything good about myself for so long. Let me read this part out of the big book. I have a big highlighted box around this, but I think it sums up what this is really all. It says it better than I do. Bill W. was a great writer. It says here, more than most people, the alcoholic or drug addict leads a double life. He is very much the actor. To the outer world, he presents his stage character. This is the one he likes his fellows to see. He wants to enjoy a certain reputation, but knows in his heart he doesn't deserve it. The inconsistency is made worse by the things he does on his sprees. Coming to his senses, he is revolted at certain episodes he vaguely remembers. These memories are a nightmare. He trembles to think someone might have observed him. As fast as he can, he pushes these memories far inside himself. He hopes they will never see the light of day. He is under constant fear and tension. That makes for more drinking. The end. So, the whole idea behind, for me at least, sharing this stuff with my sponsor, one single person, was my first attempt at no longer living under constant fear and tension. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And, you know, that paragraph, man, those 2 paragraphs, it's talking about the things that we did when we were drinking, when we were getting high. There's things where I was like, yep, I'm sure you've drank where you were like partially blacked out, but you remember little bits and pieces. And the little bits and pieces you can remember, like, you're like mortified at how other people may have looked at you. You know, it's that sucks. But let's talk about Eminem for a second. So, give me that look. I've talked about this before. But Eminem, you've seen the movie 8 Mile, where at the end of the movie, Eminem has to rap battle these guys, and the way that he wins the rap battle, he doesn't cut down the other guy. He cuts down on himself and basically hands him the mic and says, go ahead and tell them something they don't already know about me. Essentially, that's what the 5th step was for me, is if I own who I am and what I've done and put it out there, and I'm no longer, quote unquote, ashamed of it, or I at least have the courage to put it out there so that in my mind, no one else could, Tom, you can't hold that against me. I told you that about me. You know what I'm saying? It's owning it. Like, I'm winning the rap battle. And that's by putting it out there, who I am and what I've done, and being willing to improve beyond that. Own your past. And that could be a very scary thing to do. It's the 5th step is quite the experience. Like, I find so many people, and even the big book talks about it, like, what's the benefit to sharing this stuff with somebody else? It's benefited me. That's all I can say. Here I am putting it on the World Wide Web where anybody can use that against me from here on out, quote unquote. Can they use it against me though? No. Yeah. I'm the one that put it out there.
Yeah, and you know, really a lot of times people do 5th steps without even knowing that they do 5th steps, like normal people. If you have a therapist, you know, really, I mean, if you have a primary therapist, and if you are a normal person in the sense of you're not afflicted with addiction, but you have a therapist that you go see on a regular basis and you share these things with your therapist, then, you know, that's essentially doing a 5th step, and you can kind of relate and see the benefits of that, you know, going and speaking to your therapist and getting this stuff off your chest. Or, you know, if you go to confession or whatever the case is. You know, a lot of times through life, we do fifth steps, and you don't, and you understand the benefit of it because you're finally able to get it off your chest. And that's why I've said oftentimes I think that there should be college curriculum around the 12 steps, because it's so beneficial. And again, it has so little to do with drugs and alcohol.
Since we're in the treatment space here at Rock, and you brought up therapists, I'd like to throw this out there, and this is my opinion. The difference between a good therapist and one that's not so good. One that's not so good will essentially try to give you the answers. Here was your motive in the situation. Here is what you were trying to do. The beautiful thing about 12 steps and having a good therapist will allow you to have your aha moment. They'll kind of lay out like a landscape that you can come to your own conclusion, so to speak. And that's what's cool about the fourth and fifth step. Like, a good therapist will give you food for thought and like get you to think for yourself and come to your own realizations. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, anytime a therapist is like, oh, well, here's what you were trying to do with that, they don't know. You can't assume someone's motives. There are therapists out there that, in my opinion, have this idea that they can assume people's motives and why they do things and why they behave the way they do. And let's say that they're right about it. It's so much more powerful for a client to come to their own realization, their own self-diagnosis. Kind of like if we go back to step one, it doesn't matter if I diagnose Tom an alcoholic if he doesn't admit he's an alcoholic, because Tom's not going to want anything to do with the solution. If Tom doesn't feel like he's an alcoholic, he doesn't need a solution. It's the same kind of thing. Like, allow people to have their own aha moment. That's why our therapists are so good. They don't tell our clients, well, here's what's wrong with you, here's where you went wrong. They kind of lay everything out and then let the clients connect the dots on their own.
Yeah. And it gives them an opportunity too there's a sense of achievement or accomplishment there. And it's, even getting people into treatment, we oftentimes tell parents and loved ones that let them be a part of the process, at least if in the beginning, let it be their idea to go to treatment. Let it be their idea to want to get help, so on and so forth. If you go, with a pointing a finger and you need to do this and you need to do that, and this is what you're doing to the family, and can't you see the destruction that you've caused? That approach doesn't work.
I want to touch on two other things, change direction a little bit, go back to my sponsor. The other thing that happens in my experience with this is that by my sponsor disclosing his stuff, we instantly, it took the fifth step for me to fully trust him. There was another level of trust with him and I after that. And that was super powerful. I also want to touch on real quick who to do a fifth step with, because if you read the big book was written before sponsorship really took a hold. Alcoholics Anonymous started off small. It wasn't worldwide like it is now. They had 100 members that helped write the big book. But it talks about, taking it to a closed mouth friend, someone of a religious position, a priest, a pastor, whatever the case may be, a psychologist, a doctor. But I want to throw this out there. It's my opinion. It's best to bring it to somebody who is not involved with your life at all, so to speak, to start. Because there's a line in here that says, we have no right to save our skin at another person's expense. Like, by doing it with someone that's not familiar with my life and involved in my life, there are some things that I may disclose that might hurt them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And this journey, I'm embarking on this journey to stop hurting other people. So I want to make sure that my process doesn't hurt people. So I'm not going to go to my wife and necessarily tell her all the bad things that I did if it could affect her. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that's where I had the slip up in the beginning where I said that to injure them or others, because it's in the ninth step.
Oh, yeah,
ninth
yeah,
step. Yeah. You don't want to go to your loved ones and be like, hey,
So essentially, looking back, like, and maybe I should have mentioned this earlier, Tom is not wrong, because there's literally paragraphs in the fifth step in the big book talking about not injuring them or others. It's written out that way in step 9, but it's talked about in step 5, who you bring it to. And there's another part here too. Now, don't take what I say as black and white here, because I understand both sides of the coin, but there's another part that says, such parts of our story will tell to someone who will understand yet be unaffected. The rule is we must be hard on ourselves, but always considerate of others. So my sponsor, too, he pointed that line out to me and made me highlight we must be hard on ourselves. You know how many times in my life I was told, and someone like would pat me on the shoulder, oh, Ben, take it a little easier on yourself. That's what I did my whole life. That's part of what I did to keep myself a victim, so to speak. Oh, just take it easy on myself. I had to be hard on myself in this process and really do a solid 4th and 5th step. And admitting where I'm wrong, if that's easy on yourself, like, you probably didn't do it right. That's just my opinion. Like, admitting your wrongs and the way that you've lived your life has not aligned with your morals and philosophies, like, that's a hard thing to do if you're doing it right. You have to be hard on yourself.
Yeah, it's part of the growth aspect of it. I mean, you have to go through that stuff in order to grow from it. I mean, it's just, so I think, for the sake of time, the 5th step, do you have anything else that you wanted to do before we wrap up the 5th step?
Yeah, that was pretty much all my points, except let me just sum it up, because at the end of the day, step 12 talks about having had a spiritual awakening. My interpretation, there's spiritual experiences, there's spiritual awakening. I know some people look at it as short-term, long-term, like you have a spiritual experience and poof, you're sober. Some people have a spiritual awakening, which happens slowly, and then eventually you're staying solidly sober. I like looking at it like this. I think, for me, spiritual experiences are the building blocks of a spiritual awakening. That's how I look at it. And in doing the 5th step, I had a spiritual experience. I didn't realize it at the time, but I know now that something happened in my heart when I shared that stuff with my sponsor. Actually, even more important, when my sponsor shared his stuff with me. There was that connection, that trust I was talking about earlier. That was a spiritual experience for me.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it then, but looking back, 2020 hindsight, I'm like, something happened to me during that process of doing my 4th and 5th step. I was having a spiritual experience, and I didn't realize it at the time. And eventually I was like, oh, you know what? That was one of the building blocks to my spiritual awakening.
Very good. I think you did pretty well on this one, Ben.
Dude, the 5th step's awesome. It really is.
It's been our experience up to this point that this is where a lot of times people will fall short because they have a lot of guilt and shame and, just everything that comes with that. People tend to give up at this point.
When you say fall short, again, I want to bring it back to the treatment world for a second. How many times do we get clients that come back a second time and the words out of their mouth are, this time I'm going to fully open up to my therapist?
Yeah.
A therapist doesn't know. A therapist only knows what you tell them.
Yeah,
it's the same principles.
It's you're gonna get whatever results you put in. So if and it says in the book, half measures availed us nothing. It says it somewhere in there. if you go into this with the mindset of, I'm just going to do it because, people ask me to do it and I know it's the right thing to do, but I'll just, put in half measures, then chances are you're not going to be successful. And that's been the experience that we've had now working with thousands of people. And it's unfortunate because, and I did this one time, we all know that I'm a one chip wonder or white chip wonder, whatever you want to call it. But I went in, I dove in head first. I took every suggestion. I did it right off the rip, and I'm an open book. I mean, there's nothing that I can't tell you. I don't hide anything. So, and I got the results to speak for it. And not saying that I'm any better than anybody else, but I believe I'm here today as a result of the efforts that I put in over the past, X amount of years. So do not let yourself fall in the trap of, just not being like putting in half measures. Do it. And if you have any issues or, questions about it, or you want to get into a little bit more detail, you can email us and, we can have a conversation with you about it in more detail. But we're always going to tell you, get a sponsor. You got to get a sponsor, and you got to do, we'll give you some roundabout knowledge, I guess, that, we can share with you. But in the end, it's just about putting your best foot forward.
Going back to that all their life story thing, just for me to wrap it up, dude, we all have a unique story. So we think it's unique, is what I should say. And while I wouldn't want to experience any of that stuff again, I also wouldn't change it today. Because I can't tell you how many times those negatives in my life, like I get somebody sit down in front of me and they're like, Ben, you don't understand what I've been through. And I can look them dead in the eye and say, try me. And even though some of the details might be a little bit different, there's only so many feelings. And Tom, I might not have done exactly what you did, but I bet you at some point in my life, I felt the same way.
Dang right. Good job, Ben.
That was fun.
That was fun. All right. That is it for this episode of Real Recovery Talk. Thank you for tuning in. And if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you could always reach us, Tom at realrecoverytalk.com and Ben at realrecoverytalk.com. And, we're trying to help you turn your mess into your message and, help you recover. Just added that in there. That help you recover. I don't like that. I'm not going to do that again. That is it. We will see y'all later.